How are you?
I lost you for a second. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey,
Okay. Hi. Didn't get to put my Shraddhananda up there, but that's who this is. How are you guys?
hey, how are you?
So I have questions
Yeah,
for a couple other people.
yeah,
Two,
fire away.
I have two friends that are in chemo.
Okay,
So the first one, he has multiple myeloma.
okay,
He's been living with it for about 7 years now, managed to go into regression for a little while,
okay.
and then it picked back up about 2 years ago. And so he's on, a recurrent chemo series.
Mhm.
And I've just noticed for probably the last 6 to 8 months, he just looks like he has cancer.
Yeah. Oh, I hear
It
you.
has really started to take its toll.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of family stuff, so he's tired all the time.
Yeah.
And so any recommendations?
There's a bunch of things that you could do, but like with something like this, I tend to like wanna do things that are going to be like more impactful and not overwhelm them with a bunch of things to do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, the thing with chemo is, we want to be able to go through and do a detox and get that stuff out of the body at some point, although the chemo is being put there for a reason, but still help the body be more resilient when it comes to all these things. And so usually what I give, none of this is like, oh, this is like a hard way to treat it. Like, it's this way and it's the only way. Like, there's like things that I like to do in these situations, but I also make it a little bit like adjusted from person to person. One thing that I like to do, and this one might not be until a little bit later, but Greenland moss is really super good for helping to detoxify the effects of the chemo off of the body, especially the liver. The other thing that I would do is I would do things that are supportive to the autonomic nervous system, but also the digestive tract. You know how like we talked about things that like weekend or two ago. Rosemary verbena, very good for fatigue, very good for when the body's not in balance, very, very good for the liver, very good like protection for the liver, increases blood to the brain, but also can really hit a very stress plagued or stress impacted digestive tract. And chemo is going to hit the digestive tract. I mean, they lose their appetite for a reason. And so I would go that route. You could use tarragon, you could use rosemary verbena, you could use ANS support, anise, lemongrass. All of these would really need to be kind of internal, but could be very helpful. The other thing that would be super good would be like things to detoxify the body like lymphatically. So you could use your like lymphatic blend, but like here I'd even go a little bit like how we do things sometimes with energy rather than with like the physiology. And I would do health rays. Like I do health rays and spasmophilia, like really super big time on this. The health rays is going to help his body detoxify. And one of the effects of the chemo is it's constantly like shortening and congesting and drooping the health rays. And so, the rosemary is going to help with like fatigue and things like that. The health ray is really not so much with fatigue, but it would just help keep the energy moving and keep increasing the potential for his body to detoxify. And so I like this combination for situations like this. In the old days, I would usually use something to treat the liver, and like, you know, how we were talking about, and then I would do everything else manually with healing. But I find that the oils a lot of times are more effective because they can do it every day, where, you know, maybe somebody was getting a healing from me at the most once a week, and it's just not the same. You know, being able to treat it daily is you know, kind of key. And so I would I'd put him on either health raise. I mean, I wouldn't try to overwhelm him with a bunch of stuff. So like rosemary verbena or tarragon. I'm getting a very strong lemongrass vibe from this person. Like I would actually probably put them on lemongrass. And the thing is very good for the immune system. It's very good for digestive issues. It's very good for supporting the nervous system, balancing out the autonomic nervous system, which is the involuntary part of the nervous system, which gets hit really hard with chemo. Helps with lymphatic movement. You know, the issue with the autonomic nervous system is that when it gets really compromised, it really throws off lymphatic function. And so you can't, like in this particular case, you can't really treat one without the other. Like you're going to want to treat the nervous system, but also kind of keep increasing the body's ability to detoxify. And I would probably go that route, like rosemary, verbena, tarragon, lemongrass, something topical that would be like lymphatic oriented, a health ray, or even chocolate root cleanser, like topically, like in a body tonic or a salt bath or something like that. How's the prognosis? Like, is he looking like, is it looking like they're going to be able to get it, or it's still unclear?
So multiple myeloma is usually a death sentence within 3 to 5 years, but he's already had it for 7.
So he's in remission or not in remission, or?
It's no longer in remission. It came back about 2 years ago, but all his counts are looking good, and his doctors are hopeful that they can keep him here even if it doesn't go back in remission.
So I would also have him do about like 6 to 8 drops of pine oil, like on his wrist, like 1 to 2 times a day, like kind of a hefty dosage. Sylvester pine, Scotch pine. I mean, Sylvester pine would probably be my first choice, but any of the pines, honestly, just start getting pine on his wrist. The pine potentially affects, it doesn't always do it, but potentially it affects like tumor growths, like the ability to slow them down or even, you know, knock them out. And there was talk even, I don't know, this was probably 20 years ago, of being able to like try to come up with a study where they would inject tumor sites directly with pine oil.
Oh,
You know, nothing really came out of it because, you know, testing a natural substance, there's no money in it for anybody. So like to go through and to do the study, you know, nobody's interested because there's no financial benefit. And so, but that's how effective like pine oil can be sometimes with things like this, like pine oil, lemon oil, yarrow, depending on the kind of tumor it is, can all be things that are taken over a period of time. Yarrow, you don't want to take internally long periods of time, but with issues with and really super inflammatory tumor growths, you can go back and forth between taking it internally and then topically with you put it like on the area neat, and then take like a moist towel and put it over the top of it, and the yarrow will like kind of move away from the water, and so it's a way to like drive the yarrow into the part of the body that you're trying to reduce the growth rate of the tumor. And so usually those are more like, breast cancer, things like that, like really super inflammatory tumor sites. So the one that you use for a lot of things is usually pine oil. And so that's the route that I would go. I'd go pine oil.
And you initially mentioned Greenland moss.
Greenland moss, I mean, you could probably have him do that now, but it might even be something you might want to wait until he's done with chemo. Like,
Okay.
there's a little bit of a back and forth with, the chemo's in the body and you want to detoxify it, but they're putting it in the body to do something to the cancer cells. And so, like, in a way, you don't want to detoxify it too quick.
Yeah.
Like you want it to be in there to do what it's doing, and it, at some point go, now let's treat the body. Like, let's detoxify. All those other things aren't going to detoxify the body and neutralize the chemo. And the Greenland moss wouldn't neutralize the chemo, but it could take a little bit of the edge off of the chemo. Like, the chemo is really super strong. Like, a few drops of Greenland moss is not going to offset it.
Right.
But still, like, I have a rule of thumb as just a practitioner is I never want to get in the doctor's way.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think any of these will, but like, I don't want it to be where, I don't know.
Yeah, no, be cautious.
I want the doctor to be the primary thing, and I'll support it as best I can. And usually when we had tumors and things that we treated more exclusively, it's because there was no treatment for it. It was not operational. There was no chemo. It was, or they were too frail, or something where it was like nothing else was on the table. So we stepped in and did something, but usually I'm more of like a secondary thing in those situations. And so all of those things are pretty solid, should improve quality of life, should keep the body stronger, make it less reactive. Occasionally, what we would have to do sometimes is use like Melissa and some of the chamomiles, just to calm and soothe the nerves. You could even go sage with that. Sage would work really well, because of the toxicity. The sensory nerves tend to overfire. There tends to be a lot of brain fatigue. The nerves are impacted. But also, one of the things that you want to kind of watch for, the primary thing is treating the tumor sites in the body, but you also want to make sure that they don't get so depleted that they become depressed, and they're going through a lot of changes, and then everything's potentially life-threatening. And so I usually put depression right up there with liver toxicity and all those other things. And so the Melissa can help, the sage can help. They're good for calming the nerves, soothing the nerves, calming down the sensory nerves, firing from a congested lymphatic system. It's very supportive. It's very nurturing. And, we had several cases back when I was doing healings all the time where the person would go through the treatment for cancer, and the doctor was usually very perplexed because they would never have the depression going through the treatment. Usually you have to start it right off the bat, but still you can diminish it quite a bit. But there was this one lady where she had a double mastectomy, and she said, this is really weird, but I emotionally, mentally, she goes, I feel better than I felt in the last 25 years or something, but I'm going through this cancer treatment. But like we focus so much on strengthening the nerves and diminishing the depression that like she said, like, I'm just, even though I'm going through all these treatments every day, I wake up, I'm in a good mood. Like she just would always say how bizarre it was. But I think the thing that a lot of times most people don't realize is part of your emotions and part of your thought processes, it is based on your physiology. And so if you support the physiology kind of properly, you can diminish some of the psychological impact of going through some of these things. And granted, it's still life-threatening and it's still life-changing, and it's still, I had cancer when I was in high school, and I was not the same person when I got to the other side. Mine wasn't even bad. Like I just had got exposed to something. We found it. It got cut out. I didn't have to do chemo or nothing. Like it was just, but there was the before Greg and the after Greg. And, a lot of my teachers, because I was in high school, they would pull me aside and they go, it's like you've emotionally like aged like 20 years. They would say like, you're like talking to a 35-year-old kid, and it's just because of what it puts you through. But at the same time, a lot of it is just your physiology. It really is. Our body plays such a big role on our emotions and mind that it's hard to untangle it sometimes.
Yeah. So lemongrass for him, lemongrass.
Yeah. So let me break it up into a couple segments. I'm sorry, I got a little rambling there. So Greenland moss at some point. So that will be a thing unto itself, right? Mm-hmm. Then I would say I would choose, potentially rotate, but choose either rosemary verbenan, tarragon, or lemongrass. So I would say, ingested. Yeah, 2 or 3 drops. Even anise. Anise could even be a thing you would do here. So that would be ingested. And then segment 3 would be pine, like a pine oil. 4 to 8 drops on the wrist daily. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th segment would be sage or Melissa. I mean, sage is like maybe your best bet. Considered a cure-all, good for a lot of things, anti-inflammatory, good for depression, good for brain fatigue, good for overactivated sensory nerves. He's potentially going to be exposed to almost all of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like not expensive like Melissa, like, Melissa would be a bit better, but it's not going to be better like for the cancer itself. It would just be a little bit better for the nerves and emotional support and everything. And so I would probably go sage. Like,
okay. And you just said health raise?
Yeah. With the sage, I would say health raise, lymphatic function.
On the wrist.
Yeah. Health raise or lymphatic blend, I would probably do like in a body tonic or have him do salt baths.
Okay.
Salt baths for cancer patients is really, really super good, by the way.
Okay.
It just keeps the energy moving, keeps them from getting congested. It makes the body less achy and itchy and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one, she had uterine cancer.
Okay.
Stage 4, they removed it, but she has some condition like endometriosis. So it has metastasized into places where where the uterine cells weren't supposed to be, but they are because of the endometriosis. And she said her only complaint is, so she's going through chemo. She's got like 25 days of chemo. She's on day 15. She's doing really well. but now she's got diarrhea. That's her only complaint.
Okay, so with the diarrhea, let's address the diarrhea first. So the diarrhea, sometimes I would use cinnamon for that. Cinnamon's really good for diarrhea. Here I would probably use clove. Like clove feels a little bit better for this, or you don't want to use wormwood essential oil internally, so you would use wormwood capsules that you would get from the health food store. Easiest place to do this is just go on Amazon and get them on Amazon, and have her take 3 of those capsules, like maybe twice a day. It really super soothing to the gut, will knock out that diarrhea. Like it will just totally knock that diarrhea out. I mean, rarely does it knock out the diarrhea for something like this, especially when, like, because the thing with the chemo is it's wreaking havoc on the digestive tract, but on the nervous system itself. And so if it was a different kind of situation, I would say, let's go cinnamon, let's go this, but here you're wanting to really kind of support the digestive tract and the nerves of the gut. And so the wormwood would be pretty good, or clove oil, like a couple of drops in water taken internally.
Okay.
If there's some spasms, like in the low gut, especially below the navel, I would go clove instead of the wormwood. If there's no spasms, either one works.
Okay.
So I would do that, and then the big thing I would do for her is I would we can make this up if you want to do it, but I would put tarragon in tamanu oil. You know, the massage oil that's like the blended tamanu.
Mhm.
And I would have her rub it on the lower abdomen like 2 or 3 times a day if she can.
Okay.
And it will treat the endometriosis. It will reduce the cramping. It will make her more comfortable. It will calm all those things down. It still balances out the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is the rest and repair mode.
Mhm.
Still kind of hit some of the issues with the digestive tract. You know, one of the things that you still can use for even diarrhea is tarragon, for nausea, vomiting, you know, things like that. And so, you know, here we're trying to use it to treat more of things going on in the pelvis, but you're still putting it on the body. It still should have an impact on that digestive tract.
Okay.
And so she could do a little tarragon internally. She could also do a little rosemary verbena internally, just because of the stress that's impacting the digestive tract. But her big one is going to be tarragon applied to the abdomen, like daily,
Okay.
like in tamanu. Like the thing with the tamanu is it stimulates these like processes with the immune response that if you don't put it into Manu, kind of don't happen. The tarragon will still be calming, soothing, reduce the like the cramping or discomfort in the area, but when you mix it with tamanu, it actually will start breaking down the endometriosis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've actually had several cases where they were going to do surgery for the endometriosis, and we went through and we treated them, and when they went inside, there was no more endometriosis.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was, you know, it was either energy work or this thing with tarragon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so
Last
welcome.
one.